You are listening to the Daily Treasure podcast produced by Mark Inc. Ministries, and I'm Sharon Betters, your host. And as I always say, I am just imagining us walking along maybe through a forest or on the beach, which is one of my favorite places to be, and just sharing about the many wonderful treasures that God gives us in His Word. And I pray that today you will experience a treasure that perhaps you have in your possession that you have forgotten about, that God has given you previously, or maybe He's calling you to keep your eyes wide open and your heart ready to receive a special treasure for Him today. So our devotional today is called Wait in Silence, and today's treasure is from Psalm 62, verse 1. For God alone my soul waits in silence. From Him comes my salvation. Growing up is hard, especially when you tend toward emotions that quickly spiral out of control. Wise parents recognize that the babies in their home are just that, babies. Toddlers are toddlers, middle schoolers are middle schoolers, and teens are teens. So why do we expect grown-up behavior from those young children, behavior that many adults do not practice? Recognizing that growing up takes time and teaching encourages parents to mature in their own patience. One of the priorities in our family is to set a precedent so that our grandchildren connect in such a way that they are genuine friends. As often as possible, meaning when we have enough energy, we invite 8 of them to come over for a cousin's sleepover. We started having all 8 of the littles and the middles for overnights when they were all potty trained. Now the youngest is 9 years old. That is a lot of sleepovers. I love that the middles, who are 15 and 16, still ask for and look forward to those sleepovers. As you can imagine, different personalities sometimes create chaos and conflicts, giving us our share of mediating. One of the hardest lessons to teach them is to listen. When they are passionate about their cause, they find it so hard to be quiet and really hear what the other person is saying. Some of them could be lawyers one day, ready to take their cases to the Supreme Court. Chuck and I know that we are getting through to a grandchild in the heat of a conflict when the look in the child's eyes changes. The older they get, the quicker they arrive at that point. Through past experiences, they are learning to trust Grammy and Granddad, to be fair. Some of them struggle more than the others because that's their personality, but we see progress as they mature. Oh my, do I get the struggle. It is hard to learn to wait and listen, especially when we are confident we are the offended party. I will never forget my younger brother shouting at me when we were teenagers, "You always have to have the last word. You just won't stop talking. You don't listen." Though I still didn't back down in that argument, his words rang with truth and came back to haunt me when I heard the same declaration from my young husband. Waiting and listening is still a process for me. In the only psalm, David is past talking. Numerous psalms that he has written include lamenting, wailing, and pleading with God to answer the question why. But in this psalm, David orders his soul to wait in silence for God to satisfy his hope. Years of experiencing God's gracious love, forgiveness, and faithfulness drives King David's choice to wait in silence for God to reveal His purposes in this battle with Absalom. He waits in silence for the Lord to direct his steps. Have you bought into that saying, God plus me equals a majority? Perhaps your mind cringes at such a thought, but is it time to check your heart? I picture David smiling sadly and saying, Sharon, God plus nothing equals everything. Trust in God alone. Over the next few days, we'll take a look at why David came to the conclusion that he could safely wait on God alone. Oh Lord, show us what it looks like for our soul to wait on you alone. Thanks so much for joining us for the Daily Treasure podcast today. And it is our prayer, as always, that each scripture is being used by the Lord to help turn your heart toward Jesus, to equip you and enable you to walk by faith. And one more treasure from scripture is from Ephesians 5:16, where Paul challenges us to make the most of every opportunity. And I want to encourage each of us to be intentional about looking for those opportunities to share the gospel, to reflect Jesus in our interactions with others, and to always have in mind, what opportunity does God have for me today to share His love with someone who is desperate for hope. Thanks again for joining us, and I look forward to being with you tomorrow.